What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at Theo Von interviewing Donald Trump, and I kind of want to say that Theo Von is a dope dude, and I think he's great at disarming people. He's very down to earth. Like, he makes you feel relaxed. Even though he did dress up for this particular interview, he got his blazer on. He's looking good. He's trying to impress the president here, or at least trying to look presentable. But yeah, let's take a look. I mean, I thought, like I said, I think Theo Von is great at this. He's probably, if I were to really think about it, I feel like he's probably one of my favorite people as far as to interview. I feel like I haven't seen that many interviews of his, but I feel like his would be really great just because of how disarming he is and how down to earth he is and how he, if I had to guess, I think he would be a very empathetic person because I feel like he has this ability to just be on anybody else's level. And I think in order to do that, he has to be able to see things from their point of view, from their shoes. And I think he's good at that. So yes. So to me, this was really exciting or interesting because I'm like, well, Trump is somebody who's not really, I guess, the most relatable in some ways. I think he is to a lot of people. As far as like the way he speaks and what everybody says about him, but I don't think he is as far as on an emotional level. And I think Theo Von would be the guy. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. He would be the guy to humanize him and bring out any type of emotional stuff if it's there. And the thing is, the comment section did say like, oh, Trump looks superhuman in this. He's great. But honestly, I was expecting that, and I didn't get that out of it. So let's just watch it. Here's one point. Like, one point was that Theo Von talked about his drug use or his previous drug, issues with cocaine. And I think Trump just labeled him as like, oh, he's a coke user. And he didn't, I feel like he didn't come off as empathetic. Again, I am in the minority because all the comments seem to be very positive and think this makes Trump look great. I was expecting a little bit more humanity out of Trump. But yeah, I think if anything, for me personally, I feel like this just, and I was looking for it too, because I'm like, this would be interesting to see the human side of this guy that doesn't really seem very emotional or like empathetic, to be honest. But yeah, I thought this just solidified more like, oh, he's kind of sees the world like black and white. At least that's what it seemed like.
Heard that.
I'm in recovery. Actually, I've been in recovery. So like most of the last 10 years
from alcohol,
from drugs and alcohol.
So which is worse?
For me, drugs is
which is worse.
But if I have a drink, then it's tougher for me to prevent myself from.
I feel like he kind of harped on this idea of like which is worse because he asked a few times. But it's like there's more interesting questions to ask. Like somebody tells you, hey, they were addicted to drugs and now they're in recovery. I mean, you can't ask like which is worse because that can be interesting, but like that's not the main point that you should be focusing on. In my opinion,
off a chain.
Yeah.
But which is harder to quit? I've heard
which
alcohol is harder to quit than drugs, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can only imagine.
I feel like Trump is kind of looking at him like a zoo animal in a way. It's like, oh, I heard you're hooked on drugs. Tell me more about what it's like to use drugs, since I've never used drugs. Instead of being like, I wonder what it would be like to struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like he's looking at him from a distance. Like, not like, that's really incredibly tough. What's helped you stay off? What do you think got you into it? Like, why is it? Like, emotionally, what's the need being filled? It's like, oh, which is worse? Which is worse, alcohol or drugs? You know what I mean? I don't know if my point's coming across right, but
more readily available.
Well, and it's social, and you're sitting and everyone's drinking and all.
Yeah, rarely do you go to a dinner and everybody's eating like, Xanaxes or something, for appetizers. Usually people are having like a mint, a mint julep or something a little fancier, Negroni I just learned about.
Right.
But yeah.
So you have a problem with that then?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He said he's in recovery. He said he's used, he liked coke. And like, I feel like Trump is like, for whatever reason, it took him a while to process that this guy is using drugs. Maybe it says something to his limiting views of people who do use drugs. Like, it's just hard for it to get to him. They're like, oh, this is a guy who's good at interviewing. He's a professional with a career, and he struggled with drugs. I feel like maybe he's having trouble combining those things because he's already said multiple times that he's struggled with, drug abuse. And Trump doesn't seem to be able to get that through his head for whatever reason. At least that's how I interpret it.
It's been in my family. My family, it's like, yeah.
Can you stay away from it?
Yeah, I've done a good job.
You see what I mean? Like, these are just so basic questions. Like, sometimes I wonder what Trump's worldview is. It's like, the question, like, what's harder, drugs or alcohol? Oh, so you have a problem. Oh, you're in, and he said that, like, after Theo already mentioned that he was in recovery. And then what did he just ask right now? He asked something again, like, kind of basic.
But yeah.
So you have a problem.
Yeah,
with
so
that.
you have a problem. It's like, yeah, well, no shit.
Oh, wow.
Even feels like, yeah.
It's been in my family. My family, it's like, yeah.
Can you stay away from it?
Can you stay away
I've done
from
a good
it?
job.
Like, how many different versions? How many different times is he gonna have to say, "I have a problem with this. I'm in a recovery." Like, I don't know why Trump doesn't get it.
How long have you been off?
I go to recovery meetings. I've been off most recently a little over 2 years.
Theo mentions
Do you
recovery
ever go
meetings.
back on?
Yeah.
And you never go back on.
That's where I go back on
And
He's so obtuse about this, right? I mean, like, it doesn't take like that much of somebody. Like, it doesn't take that much of a dude who's like super introspective or thoughtful to be like, hey, this guy's in recovery. He has problems with it. Like, even that part, I feel like Trump's not getting. He's like, you have trouble with it. You can't stay away from it. Which one is worse? It's like, I don't know. I just feel like he's not having a human conversation.
it's tough. I've been off most recently a little over 2 years.
Do you ever go back on?
Yeah, I've had stints where I go back on and
You have to get back on.
you don't control it?
it's tough. It goes downhill
No
pretty
kidding.
quick.
So
You
you
think it's gonna?
No kidding. Just like,
think you control?
Trump, people have issues with drugs, brother.
Oh.
And I understand it, right? It's probably foreign to him as somebody who doesn't drink or smoke or do any drugs, but it's like, it just goes to show that, like, there's probably nobody around him. You would think, but it goes to show, like, what he thinks of people who use drugs and alcohol. I feel that he views them as other.
You're damn.
Boy,
Yeah, you're doing
that's,
go-kart and racing with hookers and stuff. It gets bad.
Just not to do it, right?
Right. So then in the end, you're like, I have to not do it. Did you see, like, with your brother, could you see it or anything? Like,
Oh yeah.
And the way I see it here, Theo
was
is like
amazed.
reaching for something human, because I do believe that Theo Vaughn is like a very thoughtful, introspective person, and I think he's trying to get this out of Trump because he knows that, like, people are people, right? People are going to have emotions and feelings and experiences that are all unique, and we all have different interpretations of it. And I think he's trying to pull that out of Trump in this moment, but I don't really think he's that successful at it, because Trump just doesn't lend himself to like these emotions or being a human in a weird way.
He had so much going, he had everything going. I think it happened in college at a fraternity maybe, or I don't know, somewhere along the line it happened, and all of a sudden, this is not unique. This is a very
I feel
common
like
story.
he sees things as like input, like, you put this in and you get this out, and in some ways maybe that's good, and it's been successful. It's been helpful for him in his life, but I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's really hard to relate to somebody who's not in tune with
and then the family
people
would see it and start
and their flaws, because that's a huge part of what it is to be a person.
notice it, and it didn't get better. It didn't get better. I was amazed. He lived for so long in bad conditions. In terms of, I was amazed that his body could hold out. It held
Right,
out.
he lived so long in bad conditions, and you would think that maybe this would draw some sort of emotion out of him. Like, it was tough to see him this way. It was tough to see who he was be diminished to who he became. But he just harps on, like, it's amazing. He's a strong guy. It's amazing that his physical form was able to tolerate the abuse he got put through. He put
And it
himself
had
through.
bad moments, but his body was unbelievably strong that it could withstand this.
Yeah, it's a body. Your body's just so resilient.
You see what I mean? Like, it's not inherently bad that he brings up his body being resilient, But it's like you would think that there would be some more human, like more vulnerability coming out of him when he discusses his brother that he says he like had this like kind of held in a positive light, you know, go through abuse and seeing it take a toll on his body. You would think that that'd be a more emotional thing for him, but it's not. And
Last
he's
time that
not
you
expressing it.
saw him or spent with him?
I do, and
I'm sorry to ask you about it. Is it all right?
no, it's well, you know,
So resilient.
yeah,
Do you remember the last time that you saw him or spent with him?
I do.
Again, I think that's Theo Vaughn trying to bring out some humanity out of Trump. He's like, do you remember the last thing the last time you saw him or talked with him? Because I think for most people, it would be kind of emotional to recollect that, and you'd have to do some processing. But here, look.
I'm sorry to ask you about it. Is it all right?
No,
Even Theo's word, like, I'm sorry to ask about it. Because he knows that for most people, this would be a very touchy subject.
well, you know, the reason it's good talking about it is it might help other people. If it helps one other person, it's worth the conversation. Frankly.
We talk about that stuff.
There you go. And Trump says, you know what? It's totally cool to talk about it because it would help somebody else. And that's true. That is true, and that's valid. And but again, he's not giving he's not getting any of his self to this conversation. I think it's very like from the outside looking in. Everything looks to be other. But that's right. At least he does see the value in having the discussion. So you gotta give him that, I guess.
On our podcast.
Yeah.
A lot of our audience struggles or has struggled with alcoholism, addiction, intimacy disorders, all types of stuff. So it's like it's pretty kind of normal conversation. But
I just feel like it would have been so interesting to see Theo Vaughn get something vulnerable out of Donald Trump because he's not a very vulnerable dude. He doesn't really show any of that side of him. But sometimes it seems like that might not even be in him. Yeah.
Thing is, and I tell people, so I never had a cigarette, and I've never had a glass of alcohol. And my brother was incredible. He would tell me, because he knew he had a problem, and he'd say, don't ever drink, don't ever smoke. He'd always add smoking, because he did smoke a lot, which is, not very healthy. But
Right.
he'd say, don't ever drink, don't ever drink. He'd tell me every time. I said, don't ever drink, because he knew he had this addiction. And I never had a glass of alcohol. Never, ever did I have a glass of alcohol because of him. And I would say that if I did drink, I could, conceivably be the type of personality that would have, like you, that would have a problem. But
this is the most, I think that's kind of the most human comment I can see from him. He said that if he did drink, he kind of thinks his brother, like, yo, my brother's cool because he told me not to drink and he instilled that value in me. And because of that, I am not an addict like you. And that's kind of messed up. But I think it goes to show that Trump sees him like addict, not addict. There's a clear line. And it's like, my God, it's not that, the world isn't that black and white, brother.
And the only thing I say to people is, if too late for the people that you're talking about, but if you don't drink, you don't miss it. I mean, I
See,
don't.
And I just don't like that he says it and simplifies like that. Like, of course, if you don't drink, you won't be an alcoholic. Of course, but it's more complicated than that. And I feel like there's a chance he might not know that. Like, there's a chance he might not know that, because I feel like there's some sort of lack of empathy there. I feel like there's a chance he might not know that people drink because of external reasons sometimes, filling a void, trauma, pain, and that's one way to cope, but it's not a very healthy way to cope because obviously you can, it can form an addiction and then it becomes a problem for you that can have negative outcomes in your life. But I feel like he's like, I just cracked the code, you guys. Turns out if you don't drink, you won't be an alcoholic, and if you don't do cocaine, you won't be addicted to cocaine. And this is what I don't get. People need to know this knowledge. It's like, okay, of course. But I just feel like it's not that simple, and I hope he knows that.
Think about alcohol or
right. It's not a part of your world.
I don't think about cigarettes. I don't think about any of that.
Right.
If you don't take drugs or if you don't have alcohol,
again, if you don't take drugs, you don't have alcohol.
It's real easy not to drink it.
It's easy not to do it if you don't do it. What are we saying?
Went to the Wharton School of Finance with me. He was a very smart guy.
Where is it, Wharton School?
That's in Philadelphia. That's at Penn.
Oh, yeah. Rocky.
right. And it's a great school, great business school. And it's part of the University of Pennsylvania, the business school. At
Oh, it's
the
nice
university.
down there.
Yeah.
My friend's brother went there or something.
Well,
we ate near there
then
once.
he was smart because it's a great school.
At,
But this person that I met, he
And I don't
hated.
know, like I used to think Trump kind of communicates in this way because it's easier for people to digest, but sometimes I feel like there are hints that this is just how he sees the world, and that's probably why he's always saying, this is good, this is bad, this person is fantastic talent, this person is evil, and they're the worst in history, the best in history, the worst in history, the richest, the poorest, the good, the bad. I kind of feel like this just might be how he is and how he sees the world, and that's
Taste
kind
of
of crazy.
Scotch.
In my
I
opinion.
hated it.
Because to me, humanity and the world is full of nuance and gray areas, and flaws.
Stand it, but he insisted on having it because he felt it was important to be able to drink. I said, no, just don't drink. He said, to be successful in business, you have to sort of interact and you have to drink. And I said, don't do it. Anyway, he became an unbelievable alcoholic, uncontrollable alcoholic.
Oh, I thought you meant like one of the best.
Yeah, and he died. He was
And like he doesn't realize Theo's jokes. He became an unbelievable alcoholic. He was the best. Nobody could outdrink him. Nobody could, he could drink and not get drunk. The greatest in the world.
He hated the taste of Scotch,
And he still
and then
did
he
it.
couldn't live without it.
Wow.
Literally.
Well, I think I notice a lot of like in the recovery rooms and stuff, it's a lot of people that they're missing something inside of them. And so they
Could be.
they take on like,
Could be.
so they want to try and fill it up with
It's
something.
like he can't even maybe that's what it is. It's like he's so far off.
Yeah, do you
And I
remember
get
the
it. He
last
doesn't do drugs. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. But like, come on. Like, if you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and have some empathy, you can kind of understand a little bit of it.
You spent
Or
with
if
your
there's people
brother?
around you
I do, and
who indulge.
he'd have periods where he'd get sick.
fill it up with something else?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember the last time that you spent with your brother?
I do.
Again.
And,
Again, Theo's trying to bring it back. Like, give me some vulnerability. What was the last time you spent with your brother who ultimately, who had this problem?
he'd have periods where he'd get sick, very sick, and we thought we'd lose him or we lost him. Then he'd get better. And that happened 5 or 6 times. I mean, you thought you lost him, and then he got better. And it was amazing. I mean, he was, certainly very strong in that sense. And I just tell people it's so tragic. Don't drink. Just don't drink.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have a problem. Like even you, if you didn't drink.
Yeah,
you
what's your
wouldn't-
problem? Are you overweight? Just don't eat. Don't eat, and you'll be fine. You addicted to cocaine? Just don't do cocaine, and you won't have a cocaine addiction.
Yeah, but you probably maybe wouldn't be successful like you are. It's part of your story, right?
It's helped me a lot. Yeah, because I don't.
That's probably one of the
And
more
you're not gonna
vulnerable
have a
parts, right? He talked about how his brother would get sick and get better and get sick, although he didn't talk about how he felt about it or how he processed it. That's a little vulnerable to share. I think it's very vulnerable to
Like
share.
even you, if you didn't drink, you would
But
never.
you know what I mean? He doesn't get into it. Maybe that's
But
just
you
his
probably
preference, right?
maybe-
Maybe that's his preference. But I get the suspicion that maybe he just doesn't feel all that much sometimes.
be successful like you are.
And who knows? Maybe that's why. That's what allows him to literally have a near-death experience, and just come back out and be totally fine. As a matter of fact, in the moment, he had a near-death experience, and he goes out doing this. He's a psycho. I mean, yeah, of course, hardest picture of all time in politics, but maybe that's what it is. Honestly. Like I said, maybe it's helped them in other ways. Like that. Having this, lack of empathy, I guess you could say. I think that's part of it. I don't know if that's the whole thing. I just feel like he sees just seeing the world like black and white, it seems. Maybe that's helped him, and then maybe that's one situation where it's helped him, right? Near-death experience, maybe he sees you know what, I'm alive. So I'm going to keep pushing. So good in some ways, right? Produces some positive. He's out here doing interviews. I think most people, if that happened to them, they would take a long break. They wouldn't be out here doing. And Trump was right on it right away. He was out there doing his thing right away. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Your story, right?
It's helped me
What
a
makes it
lot.
that way?
Yeah, because I don't know what would happen probably. I think it's just too risky.
It is risky.
What's something that you miss about him, or like that?
Again,
what's
Theo's
something
trying to
that you
get
miss
something.
about
What do
him?
you miss
Right.
about him?
Well, he was wise in a sense. I mean, think of it. He's got this problem, and it was very important for him to convey to me not to have this problem. And I couldn't have been successful if I had that problem.
Yeah.
If I had that problem, and I
What do
think
you
that-
miss about him? I mean, that's kind of a good. God, I feel like we always got to cut slack for Trump because most people would be like, I missed, his, I don't know, the energy he'd bring into her, something that that was genuine. But I feel like he's like, well, let me tell you something, the good that he did for me, and that's I think that's pretty good for Trump, because that is cool, that is nice, that his brother didn't want him to fall down the same path that he did. So at least he acknowledges that, and he can give credit where credit's due. That's cool. But the emotional part, I feel like, is always lacking.
I'm a personality type where I could have had the problem if I drank. But if you don't drink, you're never going to have it. I mean, I don't miss
Again
when I
with
see
this.
somebody light
Funny.
up a cigarette.
It's
and
but then
just-
you can say, it's true. If you don't drink, you're not gonna have a drinking problem. But like, come on, ma, come on, people.
they're in heaven. I don't miss that at all.
It's weird. It's so it's very Native
Isn't it-
American too.
isn't it
sometimes.
crazy?
Bizarre. And I think sometimes our older brothers, they kind of like they take the speed bumps for us, like as younger brothers, so that we don't have to. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Does that you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
like my
think
brother
it's
went through a lot of stuff so that I didn't have to go through it, and then I get to see him and learn.
Is he okay now?
Yeah, he's doing great now. But it's like, yeah, that's one of the blessings I think of having an older brother. Is
Well, you
like-
can learn through history too. Even if it's not a brother, it's
Yeah.
by watching other people.
Like, it's not wrong. You can learn from history. You can learn from what other people do, right? If people do bad things, you don't want those results, don't do those things. If they do good things and they, produce good results that you want, maybe do those things and you'll have some of the same success. But Theo is trying to have a conversation, a personal conversation, maybe about what it's like to have an older brother, and maybe like being thankful and recognizing that older brothers, older siblings go through stuff, and you don't have to go through it as a result of their experience and their knowledge. But Trump has to bring it back to a bigger picture. And again, not the most human thing. Like, I think the most human thing here would be to talk about it. And that's something they can relate on. Let's relate on having an older brother, and both of their older brothers seem to have had some tough life experiences that they both, Theo and Trump, benefited from. Let's talk about that. Let's have human. But then he goes, you know what? If you look at if you look at history, and you can learn from history too. And it's like, that's not untrue. That's not bad advice. But like, where is the human?
If you have a friend who's an alcoholic, or even just by reading about people, you can learn.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a
Again,
brother,
like
but
how
in this
many
case, it
times,
was
like if
very
you think
personal.
about it,
was a
like the way I think
brother,
about it, like
and
how many times has Theo tried to bring like a more human conversation out of Trump, and it just, how many times he tried and failed? And again, I don't know if I said it, but I really appreciate when Theo is vulnerable on his podcast.
I learned
think it's
not
good
to
for
drink,
people.
and I learned not to smoke cigarettes. Now, I don't know that I would have smoked cigarettes. I probably would have drank. I think, there's no reason not to drink, but I had a reason because he told me, just
That was it.
don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
good.
kind of a blessing then, huh?
Yeah.
And where did you guys ever do anything fun together? Like one nice memory that you have with him?
Let's see another one. What's one nice memory you had with him? Tell me something specific.
A great
here.
talent for flying. He was a pilot,
Oh, sweet.
and he loved it. And
Did
he
you ever fly with him?
I did. I flew with him. He was a great pilot.
He was a great
And a
pilot.
very-
He's asking you for a memory. He was a great pilot. Now, I know maybe he could be describing a situation, like a memory that he had with him, but it doesn't even sound like he was going there because Theo had to ask, like, did you ever fly with him? Like, tell me about that memory.
Talented. Other pilots would come to his house.
Nope. Not a specific memory. He was a great pilot. Other pilots would ask him for advice. He was great. He was a great talent. He was, you know what I mean?
To study with him.
Watch him fly.
And he was really talented at that. But ultimately, he had to give that because of the alcohol. He had to give that up.
Again, the alcohol ruined his life. The question was, what's one great memory you had of him? The answer was, he was a great pilot. He was very talented. Other pilots would, study with him. Ultimately, he couldn't fly anymore because of alcohol. Like, does he see his own brother as like just an alcoholic?
Which was a
I don't
hard thing
think
for him
so.
to do, but
I
he
mean,
had to give that up.
I'm being harsh. I don't. I don't
Election
think so,
day,
because he said other things about his brother, but I think you get the point I'm trying to make here.
easy. That's the wildest thing to watch is people losing everything. You know.
Yeah, no, they lose everything, and many people. And in those days, it wasn't drugs. It wasn't like don't drink, don't take drugs. I don't think drugs. I don't even know whether they're even a factor. They happened pretty long time ago, but I think in those days, I don't think were drugs a factor. You go back 25 years ago.
Not like it is now.
Well, certainly not like now. And
Yeah, and that actually takes me
Like,
to
I'm
some.
not going to make any commentary on that because I really don't know, other than, like, I'm pretty sure drugs were a factor. Maybe they weren't according to these two, but that's kind of why I wanted to bring up, because I feel like the comment section of this video was very like, wow, this is so great. It's so great to bring a human side out of Trump. And I do think that this might be the most human he's ever looked, thanks to Theo Vaughn and the way he is disarming and his true talent in, like, trying to level with people and meet people where they are. But I don't see it the way other people see it. I feel like Trump is very just white and black and good and bad. And even in an instance where somebody in front of him who is being very vulnerable and open, he just can't really relate or try to empathize. It's just very like, oh, so you have a problem with it. Oh, which one is worse? You can't get off of it? Oh, so you have trouble with drugs. It's like, you know, it's not, like I said, doesn't feel very human. And I don't mean that, like, I'm so scared. I feel like there's so many conspiracies out there, like that, you know, there's body doubles and weird lizard. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that sometimes it seems like he lacks empathy, and it seems like everyone else doesn't see it the way I see it, and I felt differently than the people in the comments, so I'm just making that video explaining what I saw. Maybe you disagree. If you do, that's totally fine. Everybody sees different things, and, you know, everybody's perceptions and perspectives are different, and that's okay. I just wanted to give mine because, you know, I'm a yapper and we're yapping. So if you like the video, don't forget to like. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Catch you in the next one. Peace.